Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, I'm going to be looking at Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but I'm going to be looking at WS, or 4WS, which is the workstation, and the version will be 8.2 right after this. So, yeah, let's get into this a little bit and talk about it. I've done it. I think I've done at least one video on Red Hat. I have not covered really the workstation very much. So Red Hat was founded when ACC Corporation, which was owned by Bob Young, and that was a kind of I guess, a catalog house that sold Linux software, and they also offered a few accessories as well. To be honest, I don't remember what it was. They also did sell Unix. I do remember that. But Mark Ewing is the creator of Red Hat, and he created Red Hat Linux in 1994. His first release was the Halloween release, and ever since then they've kind of done their releases in October for Fedora, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it's kind of the end of October whenever they get around to it, and that's the kind of the tradition. But anyway, Bob Young bought Mark Ewing's business in 1995, and that created the Red Hat company. So what does Red Hat really do? I mean, we all know that they're commercial, but they provide open source software, and they charge corporations a subscription model in order to get support and updates for that software. They offer it in two different versions. There's the Red Hat Enterprise ES, which is the Enterprise Server Edition. There's also Red Hat Enterprise Linux for Workstations, or 4WS, and that's also offered. And of course, IBM acquired Red Hat in 2019. They've had a number of acquisitions that they have bought over the years since they've been in operation. I think I don't remember, but I think they were close to a $1 billion corporation by the time IBM bought them. So yeah, they've been very successful at what they do. Red Hat is the second largest contributor to Linux, and they are the largest contributors to GNOME. They also offer a specialized release of Linux called Red Hat MRG, and that is the messaging real-time grid for high-performance computing. They're also the largest contributor to Ceph. They also have acquired Ceph. They acquired Gluster, and I think they also have part of OpenStack. At least I know they do a huge amount of contribution to that, and Iris, I think, was their latest release. I haven't messed with OpenStack in a long time, but yeah, Red Hat definitely has their fingers in that one pretty deep. They're also a contributor to LibreOffice, and there's many different FOSS projects that they contribute to. Arguably that's one of the advantages to paying your developers, is that they can in turn work on software and deliver it to us for free. If you don't want to pay the subscription fee, you can always go to CentOS. It is a compatible version to Red Hat, but if you're in a corporate environment and you're trying to get support for your software and you have nowhere to turn, then who are you going to call if you have CentOS? You're going to have to get on a forum and hope that someone has an answer. Whereas with Red Hat, you can, if you have the right support model and it's the right time of day, you can call them and you can get help right there. So, a big advantage if you're in a corporate environment and can't afford to be down for very long. So, the overview of Workstation is it is based on Fedora 28. They always take the latest release of Fedora that's stable at the time that they're working on the next release. They do one thing that's kind of unique, in that the 4.18 kernel was exactly the same kernel that 8.0 was released with. And yet they have updated the kernel over time. But what they do is, rather than push the kernel to a new major release level, what they do instead is to backport the security fixes and whatever major enhancements that they need to make. Sometimes it's just device drivers that they need to support because there's new hardware coming out all the time in the server worlds as well. So they may need to backport those features into the original release, and that prevents the kernel number from clicking over into a major number and triggering if you're in like a PCI DCSS, or you're in an ACPS, I think it is, or ACPC certification, or your DoD STIG. If you cross over into a major release, you're going to be recertifying. That's just generally what happens. That's very expensive. Some of those sort of recertification processes can last over a year or more, depending upon how quickly you can get through the hurdles. They call them gates. I call them hurdles. But anyway, GNOME version 3.32.2 is what's based on it. glib version 2.28, and you'll notice the compiler is relatively new. In fact, it's newer than what was available when it was originally released. Red Hat is very serious about its developers. They like to make sure that the latest versions and the software is available for the developers. And so we have GCC version 10.2.1, which is currently installed on the machine. The releases came out in April the 28th of 2020. Now that's 8.2, not 8.1. I think 8.1 came out, or excuse me, 8.0 came out 2018, I think, somewhere around in there. But yeah, it's been around. 8.0's been around for a while. Typically, I think Red Hat comes out with new major releases about every 3 years or so. They're not real quick about it, and usually their support cycles are very long. I mean, you probably read on the latest security flaw that affected 6.1. That's still supported, believe it or not. And people are wondering why those customers don't get off. It's because it's still supported. So, and I don't know, that particular flaw didn't turn out to be anything, but yeah, I mean, they support their software releases. Well, I don't know what 8.0 is going to be yet, but most of the time it's usually 10 years or more. It's quite a long time. So, which is about the lifespan of some of the servers in particular areas of the commercial world, that they'll keep them around that long. So anyway, package managers, DNF and Yum is the system ones that they use. And of course it is using RPMs. The packages that come with Workstation are GNOME boxes, Bracero, which is a CD/DVD burner, Cheese, which is a webcam application. This should be familiar if you've been around GNOME for very long. Now, I kind of think this is funny. They call Evolution a personal information manager. Well, it's not really. It's an email client, but if you want to call it a PIM, that's fine. A PIM to me has a little bit more functionality than that does, but hey. Anyway, Firefox version 78, what do I know? Firefox version 78.2 is the internet browser. And of course, the LibreOffice suite is included, the full suite. Pigeon Internet Manager is the IM software that's supported by default. Of course, you can get others as well. Rhythmbox is the music player. They also have Sundry. Sundry is used to troubleshoot SE Linux. If you're having issues with it coming up and doing things that you don't want it to do, it'll help you troubleshoot your rules and get you back on track. Snap is available, but it's not installed by default. Requirements for the GUI, these are mine, not theirs. These are the ones that I've come up with. 64-bit CPU, I think that's getting to be the norm today. Yes, they do have 32-bit libraries, but that it is a requirement to go to 64-bit. I mean, I've talked about this before. By staying on 32-bit, you're trading 30% performance. And in the server world, in the commercial world, that isn't worth it. That's a pretty huge increase in performance just to go to 64-bit. Yes, it does take more memory. So what? What else is new? 2 to 4 gigabyte of RAM, 20 plus gigabyte of disk space. I think on mine we'll check, but it's about 6 gig. I think it's taking after the install. 1024 by 768 screen resolution. You know, I always put extra because if you're gonna, what are you gonna do? I mean, stare at it. But anyway, USB DVD for installations, and then Red Hat also supports installs on ARM64. They also have versions for the IBM Power PC. The LC, the AC, and the L servers are all supported. There is support now for RISC-V that is baked in. So they are pretty. They're not as wide as some of the others, but they go by based on demand and what appears in the commercial side of the business. And if somebody wants to put in something there, then they'll work on it and support it. Generally, that's what happens. The default file system is LVM2, and on top they install an XFS file system. So Red Hat has always been known for their documentation. I mean, they offer that to anybody. You don't have to have a subscription to go out and read it. It's there for anybody to use. So, and it's very comprehensive. It goes all the way from understanding what Linux does, where it can be used, what's the business case behind it, to all the way to the installation. They go through development. They go through Ceph and clustering. There's just so much information out there. I mean, you could probably spend a lifetime reading it. Or you would have a cure for insomnia for several years. They do offer an unsupported subscription, which is free of charge to developers if you qualify. But the annual subscription for the standard license is $299 a year. And that gives you support as well as rights to get the updates. So that's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. in most areas. I think there are some limitations on other areas depending upon, the time frame and the work requirements for the people that are working the support lines. But there are some areas that are 9 to 5, and of course they are offering those globally. They are after all, an international corporation, but they are based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Self-support subscription is $179 a year. That does not include, it does get you the updates, but it doesn't give you any support. Then, of course, they don't recommend that for production, and I would have a hard time recommending that for production use either. The whole purpose of paying for support is to be able to get somebody on the phone that you want to talk to get a problem solved quickly. Also, they also offer learning subscriptions. I'll let you read about those. They go anywhere from $3,500 up to $7,000, depending upon what your needs are and how you want to get to the exam and whether you want it covered or not. But basically, that will get you certified in Red Hat. So, and there's different levels, different tracks that you can choose to take that. So I guess probably the best thing to do right now is let me get set up and we'll do an install. Okay, so I've got Proxmox up. I am going to put this up on the KVM today. And let's get started with that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a VM. And we'll call this Red Hat 2. If I can get my cursor in there. Here we go. And I'll have to get to my NAS. And scroll down to Red Hat. It's in here somewhere. There it is. And that's fine. The rest of it's fine. So we'll go ahead and click next. And this one needs to change to Spice, I should say. Spice. And 32 gig is fine. I am going to give this 4 cores. And I'm going to come back and do some videos with the developer modules that are here for you guys and show you what's available as far as the tooling is concerned under the workstation, because that's really what it's developed for. But I'm going to go ahead and get that going. We'll get it created at least, and then we'll start it and get ready to do the install. So we'll highlight it, and then we'll come up here and do a start. Nope, that's not the right one. Where is the right one? Yeah, it is. That's the right one. So we'll go ahead and do a start on it. And we'll do a console. We'll open up the viewer. Make that a little bigger for you, and then we'll go ahead and get registered, and then we'll do that. It should come up and it'll start to check the ISO just to verify that it's all right. So I'm going to skip that. Been through that a couple times already. Don't think I need to do that again. So I just skipped it with the escape, and we'll move on. Just check to see if I was recording just to make sure. All right. Okay. So Anaconda comes up first, and then it switches into the GUI. So I think if you've done Fedora, this probably looks familiar. If you've done CentOS, this probably looks familiar. It's the same. So yeah, English US, and we'll click next. And then after a bit here, it will generate this page, and this is wrong. The time zone is wrong, so I'll fix that. Software selection, it has server with GUI by default, but I'm going to use Workstation because it's, and then here you have a number of things that you can install if you want with this. Like I can install the GNOME applications. I can set this up, which wouldn't make much sense. I can put in the Office Productivity Suite. That's how I'm going to do that. If I had remote desktops I want to talk to, or containers, I can install that. .NET Core development, I can put that out. But I'll probably come back and do those later. As far as this down here, it's okay. So I'm really done. That's my selection of stuff. So it's a little larger than a standard install, so this will, of course, take longer. We'll pick the drive that we're going to use. You need 2 partitions for the default. If you're on PowerPC, you'll need 3. And then if I'm not going to do this right now, because I have one that already has a subscription. I'm only allowed 1, so I will delete this one and go back to the one that I'm using after I get this, show you the install. Now the security profiles are used if you have PC DSS or DISA-STIGs, and there's a number of them. The Australian Cybersecurity Center. There's also a protection profile for general purpose. So yeah, if you have to use one of those, then you can choose that. I don't need one of those. And then at this point, it starts to install, but you can go ahead and set up your passwords if you want. Well, of course they don't. Let's see. Okay. So now it does. I have to do that at least once a video. It's a meme. Okay, I'm going to add my user account, make it a user administrator, and then give this a user ID and a password. So I'll have sudo rights. And this is going along pretty quick, but I'll be back. It is, let's see, 1935 right now. So I'm going to pause this, and then I'll start it when it's done. Okay, so it's done, and it's telling me that this product is subject to license agreement found at the EULA, and there is a EULA for this, of course. I really don't want to reboot it. What I really want to do is shut it down, but I guess I can kill it. So let me go ahead and get rid of this. What I really want to do is knock this down. No, I don't want to shut down. I want to stop. Okay, let's get this out of here. And grab that, and we'll do a stop on it. Because what I am going to do is I'm going to switch over to the one that already has the, I mean, it'll boot up. It's not a problem. It's just that I want to use the one where I already have the subscription key entered. So we'll start that one, and then we'll go to the console, and we'll open that. So this is normally what you would see, a grub menu. And I'll go ahead and expand this. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and do the full screen view. There we go. Little HDMI glitch there. because it switched modes. So I have done a little bit of decorating on this. The default one is all black with a raised 8 on it. I can show you. If you were to come in, this is what you would see. Is that it's kind of dark. You have your normal GNOME. Now, I did not see on the list of any other GUIs that you could use with this. So I didn't see any choices for Mate or XFCE, but we can check to see if they're in the repos. Now, I have installed the EPEL, the enterprise, the non-free repos. So there's instructions on the Fedora project site to do that. It isn't near as difficult as it used to be. But the only thing that you normally have to do with Red Hat is they take the ones from Fedora, but Fedora has to test it first to make sure it's going to work. So there's a bit of a lag sometimes. So when 8.3 comes out, there may be a bit of a lag before the EPEL libraries come out for Red Hat. And that's just to give the Fedora team time to test. So I don't know. That seems to be a frequently asked question. How come these don't work? It's because they're not certified to work. So anyway, let's see. First thing I want to do is let's see if we can determine how much disk space we're taking. And it looks like about. And the boot is taking 229 meg, and the root is taking about 5.8 gig. It's right here. Root's right here. And then, yeah, about 229. So you got a total of 6 gig, a little bit over 6 gig. And then we can do a top. And it looks like memory out of the 8 gig, it's using 1.3 gig right here, using 1.3, and it built a 4 gig swap file, which really isn't necessary. Well, wait a minute, that's right. It hasn't used any yet. So let's see. Let's also take a look at. I have HTOP. I had to install, and that is in the EPELs. So you need those before you can do anything with it. Get that anyway. Let's see, 1.3, it agrees. And NeoFetch. A little sluggish. 1511 RPM packages. And 3.32.2 is GNOME, just like I said. I did change this to dark. And I did modify the screen window. The default terminal is white. It's black text on white, so I just went in and changed the theme. And that's it. So yeah, I've done a little hacking on this to get it kind of so it isn't so shocking. But let's just look through some of the packages here and see what we've got. So we have GNOME boxes, which of course is it's KVM virtualization and QEMU for Linux, and KVM, of course, came for Red Hat. Rosaro, just like I said, is there. There's a calculator. I didn't add that to my list. I didn't think that was real important. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Do you still use a calculator? But Cheese, and then you have Evolution, Files, that's GNOME. Firefox, and it should be 78. We'll check it. .2. Just they weren't lying. So let's go ahead and shut that up. And we'll go back over here to our list of apps. GNOME is written for shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, and I haven't set up the ones I like to use yet. So if you're wondering why I'm going through the long way, that's why. LibreOffice, we have that. Pigeon. This is your subscription manager. It lets you know how much time you have left on your subscription. And when it is starting to run out, it will remind you. Rhythm box, there's your typical GNOME settings. We can go in there and look at that. We kind of were in here earlier. You have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which the KVM, of course, doesn't have. Notifications on what applications you want to allow to send notifications to the screen. Regional language, universal access, and you can manage your online accounts and your privacy. Your sharing options, screen sharing is off, remote login is on, and I probably will change some of that if I leave this up for any length of time. It's typical network manager stuff. You can install a VPN in here if you want. Your device manager. Thunderbolt is pretty much now a staple inside of GNOME, so it is GNOME 3 at present. I don't know what the plans are now in my system. It doesn't. Well, the processor really does have Thunderbolt, but the KVM doesn't see it, and the motherboard doesn't have it. So, yeah, Thunderbolt's been around a while. So let's see what we got here. 332.2 LVM 901, and it sees all the disk. So yeah. Probably what I should do is come back, maybe do a follow-up with this, and actually do some benchmarks against Ubuntu, and maybe one against I don't know, maybe against Clear Linux. I haven't revisited Clear Linux in a while. I probably should go look at that too. But yeah, I should probably put that back on the list. Since they're a rolling release, you have to kind of take snapshots of it every once in a while to kind of update on what they've been doing. That has been changing a lot. I mean, I get email lists from the Clear Linux people that it's about, this deep in the email stack. It's just a horrendous amount. So the typical store, manage it, and you have updates and installed and all, and then you have your categories here of things to install. Let's open up a couple of them. Now, there's not an awful lot here. I will say that. These are the ones that are installed. Well, how do I find the ones that are not? Let's drop this down. See what else is there. Should be. Yeah, it's just showing me the ones that are already out here. I wonder if that's an option. Probably. Let's see if I can do a search on something. Let's see. Let's do one on VLC. So it's only showing me the libraries that I have. I probably would have to update the repositories and then let it refresh that store is looking at, because right now it's only showing me the ones that I have already installed. So yeah, I guess that's all right. And Sundry, this is like we talked about earlier. This is the SE Troubleshooter, SE Linux Troubleshooter. I think you probably have seen this before. I mean, if you have used SE Linux before on Fedora or any of the other, if there are detected problems, you can tell it you want to see the pop-up come up on the screen, and typically they'll be with the audio system. Just telling you. Typically it will be with the audio system. I mean, I probably get about 90% of them are coming from that. So, yep. They're probably doing things they shouldn't be doing that SE Linux doesn't like. And then I've installed tweaks that wasn't there. And then you have your archive manager, characters. I did ask for backup, but I don't see the backup solution here. I did install it when I did this one. That was one of the curious things. I don't know where it went. But I don't really care. I use rsync anyway for mine. You got events, and yeah, go look at your logs. Let's see what this is actually doing. RT operation failed to make ourselves RT. Well, yeah, this isn't an RT kernel. Brilliant. I didn't ask for an RT kernel. Real time is what that's referring to. Good. I can look at all that. I can look at my security logs. I can look at my hardware logs. So if I am having trouble with the hardware out there, which was virtual, but if the virtual hardware is having problems, it probably means the real hardware is having problems underneath of it. So what do I think about this? I mean, I used to use Red Hat a lot at work. I use it tons. I used it. We had virtualization stations set up, so we could put these little clients out on the desk, and then have the heavy lifting stuff in the back on the virtualization engines. And the reason for that was it made it easier for the admins to update the developers' workstations when they needed new tooling, because they would install it across the board rather than just for one user. Because what always happens in large development organizations is somebody will come up with a new tool, right? And they'll tell their friends about it. And then they'll go, hey, can you give me that tool? And they'll take them 2 hours out of their time to go install it on their friend's machine. And then the third one hears about it, and here we go again. So we decide, okay, if somebody wants a new tool, we'll apply it equally to all of them, and we will use tools like Ansible and Jenkins to do the installations of those. But yeah, anyway, let me flip back over here. Anyway, I'm still getting used to the setup here, and so it may seem a little bit choppy, but I'll get used to it. And then I still have about maybe half of the things I want to put on this to get done. I'm just taking up. I mean, this is nothing. None of this is new. I had a studio that I did live music over the internet, and used to play with a number of musicians from England, and another one from at the time was just outside of Philadelphia, but we'd play together and then would play in Second Life. And so we would put our music streams together and then do the video out to live stream. This was before YouTube had live streams. But yeah, I mean, so I'm just kind of picking up a bunch of old equipment and just kind of repiecing it back together and trying to get it to work with the modern Linux. Originally, it all ran on Macs, I think, originally. But anyway, I'm getting there. I'm slowly getting there. But one thing I did want to say, though, is for the Patreons that have joined, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. There are 3 of you. I still haven't gotten around to ask permission to use your names yet, so I'm not going to mention them. But also, we crossed 4,400 subscribers, and I really appreciate that. I had a comment the other day from one of the more he's been on the channel for a while, A Shrek, and he said, "How come your channel doesn't have more than 1 million subscribers?" And you know what? I'm happy with the number I have. I mean, if it grows to that, I really can't conceive it. But if it were to grow to that, that'd be fine. But I'm happy that there's 4,400 of you that find this channel useful. And I really do. And so thank you for subscribing. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to see you again real soon. And as always, take care and bye for now.